Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Triple hey for all you out there. How's everybody doing? My name is Ryan Tamori. Right? Can't even pronounce my name right. Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. Being that football season is over, we're changing things up and adapting to the basketball schedule. However, everything that has transpired over the last 24 hours, I knew Wednesday night that this was happening, so we decided to come to you live. Want to thank our sponsors before I get into today's guest list. Dulce River Bakery and Coffee. Love Armando and Molly over there. Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, Hydro Bar, affordable service, heating, plumbing, and air conditioning for your HVAC needs in the Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Affordable Service has been in business in New Mexico since 1986 and is still locally owned. During that time, they've served more than 40,000 customers, providing complete residential and light commercial HVAC services, including heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. Affordable Service takes pride in its staff and commitment to the Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Going to bring in my first member of the panel. Lost my train of thought there, which I do a lot now. He's been a Lobo fan since 1970. He is the voice of Western New Mexico. His name is Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, Ryan, about as well as could be expected. Sunday news in the last 24 hours, but I got to say, I guess it wasn't totally unexpected, but still, trying to digest all of that and then getting fielding calls from a lot of Lobo fans and friends that want to know what we think and what they think and how they're absorbing the news. So lots to talk about.
I want to give the guest list today. Football, former UNM football players, Ian Clark, Josh Bazinet will be joining us. Never talked to Josh. Looking forward to that. Ian's been on the show. Love Ian. Love talking to Ian. He and I are the same age. Excited for that. We will get into it here in a moment. We'll give our opinions. 5 o'clock, 505 Sports Venture Foundation. Mackenzie Bishop and Kurt Roth. Love talking to those guys. I really like Mackenzie. We have differing opinions. That's a true thing. I'm interested to see what he has to say and what Kurt has to say. Kurt was spot on where he thought this was a 6-7 win team. They probably should have been with UNM football. Obviously, tomorrow night, UNM takes on NMSU in a rivalry game. I would think a beatdown of NMSU would be a big deal. If you're looking for basketball content, hey, head to Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you can find a podcast. Rick and Eric broke down the San Jose State game. And it might be, to those listeners, more enjoyable. We're going to get into Bronco Mendenhall here in a second. I wanted to do some house cleaning. and I am going to read one tweet. At Bear12DJ, and I'm going to make this quick. When I listen to the Pit Press NM and Ryan drives me crazy, he hates the state and hates the Lobos. I appreciate the information and the stream. He says a lot of stuff that's true, but good Lord, he's a miserable, unprepared host. You're not wrong about the unprepared part, but I have to defend myself. I work a day job. Some days I'm more prepared for the show. Other days I'm not. As far as hating the state and, other things about it, that's not necessarily true. I'm very proud of being a UNM alumni. I love the campus. I think it's nice. When I'm on the East Coast, I defend the Pit because there's nothing like it. Miserable, you're probably not wrong. I am probably a miserable fuck. And that's the last and first time I'll use that curse word. Ed, I am going to start with you. I want your thoughts on Bronco Mendenhall, and we will get into the details of the contract, and then I'll read what new athletic director Fernando Lobo said. You and I were at the press conference. I am going to start with you. I want to know what your thoughts are about Bronco Mendenhall, and please don't hold back.
We talked about that a little bit earlier today, you and I did, and there were some things I said to you that I will not say here. But I was pretty hacked off. I'm not going to lie about it. We heard this could be happening a couple of days ago, and it came true. The source I had was spot on about it. I think you had one too. I think all the things that people said, there's a lot of people said a lot of things today, but all the things that Coach Mendenhall said when he came here, earned, not given, the number thing, the players, I'm here, 5-year commitment. We're going to build something here. The tears after the Utah State game, which seemed genuine at that time, the tears and the hugs after the Washington State win, a win over a ranked opponent, which they hadn't had in 20 years. It gave you hope. It gave me hope for optimism where we hadn't had any. You and I argued about it or differed in opinions whether this team was improved. I said, I'll still stand by that. A team that had no hope for a bowl game for the last 8 years had hope. And you mentioned maybe should have been a 7-win team. It couldn't execute. Remember what he said too. Execution comes to the light when it's most critical. He said that over and over and over and over when they needed the execution in times that were critical, to get that win. They didn't do it. They weren't good enough, but they looked better. They looked better, and they gave me hope. And with him being here, I thought, okay, and there's some fans online here that swore by him that aren't swearing by him. And one of them is, and it's public record. I don't think he's going to mind me saying it. It's super fan Rudy Chavez. He's really hacked off, and he said some things that, that he didn't feel Bronco acknowledged what he had, and Rudy's a super fan, one of the best fans there is. I don't always agree with, everything he says. He doesn't agree with me, but if he's mad and hacked off at Bronco, that ought to tell you something right there, because he was one of the biggest supporters on some shows that we had. So I got to tell you this, my wife, my poor wife, man, she's got to listen to all my rants. So she said, you want consistency with your teams. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and people laugh at that. I'll never stop being a Dallas Cowboy fan. I'm a Los Angeles Lakers fan. People laugh at that. They haven't been very good lately. I'll never stop being a Lakers fan. I'm a Lobo fan. You always mention since 1970. So when you saw a hire like Mendenhall for a football program that had been languishing, and you're thinking, then you see a 5-7 with, hey, a chance to go to a bowl game. You're thinking the next year, hey, things are going to be better. Then Dampier goes to the transfer portal, and reality starts setting in. And then you hear that he's leaving. And I'll tell you, I told you today, it felt like somebody mentioned it like a gut punch, and it feels like one. It really does, because New Mexico's back at square one. But on the other hand, I told you this today too, that Fernando Lobo, the new athletic director, this is a challenge for him. And the challenge, all they're asking you to do is to hire a football coach that's going to stay here and rebuild or redo that stadium, which is going to cost, you and I mentioned this, the pit cost $60 million in 2010 and 2011. What kind of price tag are they looking at for renovating that stadium, or do they build a new one? And is there a market to build one with nobody coming? Again, that was part of the issue too, was the attendance. Even a game against Washington State, a ranked opponent, brought 14,000, more like 11 or 10. Football has never been a big issue here, or big fans are apathetic towards Lobo football. So Fernando Lobo, this is you would think he's got 3 names ready to go. You've mentioned some names, Matt Wells being one of them. Urban Meyer's name came up. We have to see what he thinks, what he says. They hired him for this. Someone said to him, Coach Mendenhall very well may be leaving. Devin Dampier may be leaving. You're got a strong football background. This is where you come in. So I think there's a lot on his plate. He's got a lot of work to do here. And I'm, you know what, my thing with Coach Mendenhall, yes, you came in here and, you came in here and improved the team. Go to Utah State as fast as you can, man. Don't let the door hit you. I want somebody in here that wants to be a Lobo. He didn't want to be a Lobo. He wants to go to Utah State after 1 season. Dennis Franchione left after what, 3 or 4 seasons? Rocky Long left, and it was only because Paul Krebs, he wanted to stay. Paul Krebs pushed him out of here. Bob Davie and Eddie Nunez had a mutual parting of the ways. Bob Davie was here for a while. Bronco Mendenhall is the only coach that I know of in Lobo history, football history, and probably Lobo coaching history to leave after 1 season. So some good things happened when he was here. You're losing Devin Dampier, you're losing Wysong, you're probably losing Sanders, you're probably losing a lot. But I'm anxious to see what Fernando Lobo brings in as far as the new coach. I'm sure he's got 3 to 5 names ready to interview, ready to go. So I'm anxious for that, and very disappointed, way more disappointed in Coach Mendenhall than I was in Steve Alford, who built a program here, got the Lobos to the NCAA tournament, and then signed with UCLA. And at that time, he said, "Hey, it's UCLA." Who could blame him? I couldn't blame him, even though he had just signed a 10-year extension. I don't think I was pretty mad at Coach Alford, but this is way worse to me. One year, it's a gut punch. You want to leave. My thing is, don't let the door hit you, man. Get out of here as fast as you can, and let's get someone in here that wants to be a Lobo.
Feel free to join the conversation on Twitter, X. Tell me how miserable I am, please. Again, Ian Clark, Josh Bazinet join us at 4:30. Mackenzie Bishop and Kurt Roth from 505 Sports Venture, your NIL collective, on the show. I don't even know where to start because, once again, probably I don't. There's so much to unravel here. You don't quit your job, you quit your boss. There was a lot of grumbling that Bronco Mendenhall was not happy with the hiring of Fernando Lobo. He wanted Dave Williams. Dave Williams had sat in front of us and explained to us that he helped and was responsible for getting Bronco Mendenhall here. And a side note, I think it's very funny that Eddie Nunez, I don't know if Dave Williams is staying or not. There hasn't been any news on that. If he's leaving, don't know that. But Eddie Nunez is gone, who hired Bronco, and Bronco is gone. So when I say you don't quit your job, you quit your boss, Bronco was out of there. I have also heard a lot of, it's a shittier place than UNM. It's a lateral move. Utah State has a football budget basically triple what UNM's has. It's almost 37 million. UNM's is almost 13 million. And he's getting, I'm going to bring up the ag ship that covers Utah State here. This was tweeted out earlier today. Appreciate the Ag Ship for this. I need to bug them, see if I can get them on this unprepared show. The Ag Ship had obtained Utah State's offer letter to new head coach Bronco Mendenhall. His salary will begin at $2 million with annual raises, salary tables and incentives. Whoops, I did that twice. Here's year 1, $2 million, and it moves on up to year 6. And then these are his incentives. He gets $5,000 just for beating BYU or Utah State. Eric likes this stuff more than I do. He sent a text to us that Danny's base salary was $700,000. Bronco at Utah State's salary is $2 million with another, $1.5 million for assistant coaches. I'm not shocked that he's gone. And another thing is, I've mentioned, I think the football stadium needs a redo. I think the north end zone's fine. And once again, I've mentioned on this show, the pit looks good. I think the pit's fine. And I don't think it's really lost a lot of its luster, especially if you were at Utah State or San Diego State last year. The crowd on the other night, not to get off topic, was mind-boggling to me. I don't understand why there weren't that many people there. I don't blame Bronco Mendenhall, and as I've said on previous shows, he looked miserable here. I get that might be his demeanor. I get that might be who he is, but he looked like he expletive hated his life here. And I wonder if he got here and those coaches got here and took a look around. Think about what Dusty May said at FIU. He said he wanted to start crying when he saw the facilities at FAU, the men's basketball coach who got them to a Final Four and is now the head coach at Michigan. I just wonder if they look around and said, holy hell, what are we walking into? You mentioned he cried after the Utah State game. I mean, that's a little odd. I mean, they came back against they won 4 games this year. They went 4-8. I wonder what's going to happen to Nate Drilling. I really do. I'm not shocked by it. But why would you take this job for a year? And to remind this, I mentioned this back when he was hired and over the summer. He left $4 million on the table at Virginia. Was he hurting for money? I can't imagine. He's got a ranch up in Montana. I know it's like a drug to these guys. They miss it. I also think that I have seen as a member of the media, I think the death of UNM football twice. Rocky was not pushed out. Rocky was fired, and it was a lie. Krebs did not push him out. They did not ask him to leave. He did not resign. He was fired. Mike Locksley was an extinction level event for UNM football. That was incredibly bad. He's been on record saying he shouldn't have hired his friends. And now this. Ed, I'm going to pose the question to you because I'm negative Nelly. I don't know if this necessarily I'm going to be quite honest. Does it set UNM football back? At the moment, yes. Moving forward, I don't know, depending on who we get in here. Do you think, and I want to read Fernando Lovo's statement today and Bronco's statement, but do you think that how immensely do you think it sets UNM football? Maybe just not the program, but the department back.
The department I can't speak for, but the football program, you're losing a coach that, they won 5 games and were predicted to win 1.5 games. So there was an improvement. You improved. There was hope. So a lot of it hinged on whether Devin Dampier was coming back. Apparently he's on his way to Utah, and who could blame him? Playing there with Coach Kyle Winningham and apparently Jason Beck. Who could blame him? The chances of him staying here were not very good. So, yes, it's a step back for sure, because who else is going? We've heard Eli Sanders might be going. Luke Weissong has entered the portal. The portal, we haven't seen who's leaving and who's going. You would think some of the offensive linemen might go with Coach Mendenhall. So, yes, for the moment, it's definitely 2 steps, big steps back, in my opinion, until we see who the candidates are. And the other thing is, when a new coach comes in, they're coming with a new roster. Yes, they can get some people, from the transfer portal and players. Yes, we understand that. But the quarterback is huge. We had a guy that made plays with his arm and his legs that we hadn't seen around here in a long time, since Donovan Porter-Reed. So, yeah, you lost that. You lost the coach. It's 2 giant steps back. 2 giants, maybe 2.5, until we see who the candidates are. And, again, remember this, though. I think we're maybe underplaying this, and with Fernando Lovo. He's young. There might be some older ADs that would say, I don't want that job, because Dave Williams, you mentioned maybe Coach Mendenhall did want Coach or Dave Williams to get that job. Hey, man, okay, he didn't get it. I didn't think they'd ever hire Dave. I really didn't. I said that to Ned James. I thought they'd go outside. Nothing against Dave. I thought Dave did a good job, and he didn't get a shot, but I didn't think they'd hire him anyway. I thought they'd go outside, and they did. So Fernando Lovo is young, right? He's young, and he doesn't have any thing to jade him. he's heard about New Mexico, but in his mind, he thinks, hey, he's gonna make things happen here and take that next step for his resume so he can leave someday, because he will leave. And so that's just the way it is. Remember this, Ryan. I don't know. I know you remember this. We had Glover Quinn on, and my son and I, Nick, had Heath Ridenauer, who used to be the coach with Danny Gonzalez last year. And we asked him, hey, what about the Lobos? Glover Quinn said it. If any player does well, they use it as a stepping stone, they'll be gone. Glover Quinn he said that, and it's true. And Heath Ridenauer said the same thing. Any player that does well at UNM, they'll use it as a stepping stone to go somewhere else and get more money. Boom. We saw that happen. So, the new coach is going to have to deal with that. Look, the support for the football team is apathetic. We know that. It's always been apathetic. So, since Rocky left, the fans didn't even come back with Davies' teams that went to the bowl game 9-4 2016, did not move the attendance meter at all. 16,000. What did they average out? 22 out there? 22,
yeah.
When Davey was here. So I love that football team. I will always love that football team. But those are the realities with Glover Quinn. And, the other thing you said about Bronco and the facilities, hey, man, he was here. He was a defensive coordinator. The facilities were the same as when he was, maybe a little bit of improvement when he left. There's the weight facility, which is greatly improved. He was here. I don't buy that. He looked around. Don't sign the contract. Don't come here. Don't coach then. If you saw that and you said, hey, gosh, man, they took you through a tour. You've been through here. He's been here. So it's not like he's like, oh, my goodness, don't sign. Don't come here then. That's the way you felt. Again, I said this to you the other day. If he's miserable, he's got 1.3 million reasons not to be miserable, in my opinion. You get that kind of money. If you're miserable, man, hit the road. Get the heck out of here, man. Get out of here and go be happy somewhere else. And let's get someone in here that wants to be a Lobo. He doesn't want to be a Lobo. That's fine. He wants to go back to Utah State. He got his deal. Good for him. Now, Fernando Lobo, hey, man, you're on deck. You're on deck, man. And you know what? This is your big first swing. So good luck to you, sir. All we're asking is you bring a football coach in here that's going to stay for 3 to 5 years, that's going to get us to a bowl game and get that facility upgraded. That's only on the three small end of it, and it's got much more to deal with besides football. But they brought him in because he has a strong football background. So, like I said, he's on deck, man. He's a young guy, so I bet he's anxious to put his footprint or his handprint on with his first big hire here. And I'm thinking that hire has to be in place by next weekend, soon, because they got to get going, man. They got to start recruiting. They have to get going. The other thing is the signees that are here now, what becomes of them? My son and I were talking about that. They probably go with Bronco. I doubt they stay here. So recruiting is another question. They've got a lot of questions until they get a new coach here.
I saw, a couple comments. Once again, if you got switched to a different boss and you didn't like him, what would you do? That's the hunch I'm going with. This is the statement from Fernando Lobo. And it's quite long, but I wanted to read the whole thing. It is on UNM's Twitter page. Last night, head football coach Bronco Mendenhall informed me that he was stepping down to accept a similar position at another institution. I shared with Bronco my disappointment, as for several weeks, President Stokes, the athletic administration, and then I have engaged with Bronco and his representatives in discussions and presented him with aggressive offer to significantly invest even more in our football program, our coaching staff, and in Bronco. We thank him for his 1 year of service to the University of New Mexico. We are unaware of his intention to interview elsewhere and therefore had already begun laying the groundwork for what comes next. And our focus will remain on the success of our student athletes and their well-being. Our search for a new head coach is already underway, and there are already significant interest from elite coaches who want to be a part of the Lobo family. Our football program, athletic department, and our university are on the rise, and with additional investments, incredible fan base, and strong overall athletics program, I am confident that we will have a tremendous pool of candidates. I want to thank Lobo Nation for your continued support and patience. I cannot wait to introduce our next head football coach. Go Lobos, Fernando Lobo. Bronco Mendenhall in his release. This is what Sean Ryder tweeted out, and I just happened to catch a glimpse of it. I didn't see the whole release. My passion is developing young people and transforming football programs to reach their full potential. Utah State provides a great opportunity to do both and allows a family focus that is essential to me and Holly. We look forward to adding Utah State's rich tradition and striving for football excellence. And I want to reiterate this point. Bronco Mendenhall's salary was $1.2 million per year here, a $6 million deal with a base salary of $1.2 million per year. Incentives could lead him making more at Utah State University. Once again, I want to thank the Ag Ship, and I'm still in your contact, giving you credit there, attributing it $2 million per year at USU. His salary will begin at $2 million and with annual raises, salary and table incentives. Again, he even gets $5,000 for just beating BYU or Utah. And also, as Eric had mentioned, and I don't have a graphic for it, Danny Gonzalez's salary was $700,000. I don't know what he had for the assistant coaches, but Bronco at Utah State has $2 million and then another $1.5 million for assistant coaches. That's a lot of money. I'm just going to, before I see Ian Clark's jumped on, and I really, really appreciate for him joining us on such short notice. And it's the same conversation we had last year. Just got a text. I don't know if I'm going to read it. I'll ask him. I'm going to throw out these names, and I'm very excited for the first one. The old head ball coach who's kicking kickers, Urban Meyer. Jeff and JJ talked about it this morning on the opening drive. It's not batshit crazy. Fernando Lovo worked at Jacksonville with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I almost said Jacksonville State. They played tonight. The Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a job there. I forgot what the position was, but he worked under his tutelage. And again, Chris DeConte at Texas, who was from Taos. I mean, there's all that. These are just names I'm throwing out there. And somehow Bronco Mendenhall's name was on this. Urban Meyer, Bronco Mendenhall is not accurate. I guess I just copied and pasted there. So we're going to cross that out. Urban Meyer, Eric Bieniemy, he got fired from UCLA. Tom Herman, Fernando Lovo has a relationship with him. If you've never seen Biff Poggi, I think it is, he coached at Charlotte and he had a cutoff sweatshirt and he looked like a man. It was great. Google it. I should have done that before I brought it up. Sean Clark, Blake Anderson, Mike Houston, Stan Drayton, he got fired at Temple. Don Brown, he won a national championship at the D2 level or FCS level with UMass, FCS. Dan Mullins, and as Jeff Symbieta mentioned this morning, Matt Wells is a big fan of Albuquerque. He loves it here. Before we go to Ian, I just wanted to read some comments. And again, Josh Bazinet will be joining us at 5:00. Kurt Roth, Mackenzie Bishop, John Romero, pit press is gone for 6 days and all heck breaks loose. BT, could Albuquerque be an issue nationally? It does have a great reputation. I believe you meant does not have a great reputation. Ice Baby, stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention. I grabbed my 9, all I heard were shells. It hurts right now for all Lobo fans, but I truly believe it's going to be a blessing in disguise. Bring someone who wants to be here for the right reasons. New Mexico is a beautiful state and has some of the best fans. John Romero, we have $2 million extra to work with the buyout. We can now afford Jerry Kill. Let's bury the hatchet and hire him. His health is better. All right.
That ain't happening, John. We already talked about that. That's not happening.
All right. I'm going to go to I'm very, very grateful, and I don't know if they can hear me, for these two gentlemen that are joining us. Of course, I've always talked to Ian, and I'm happy to have Ian on. A Lobo safety from 05 to 09. My man, Ian, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
All right.
Appreciate you, dude. Thanks for joining us last minute. And then a name that I hadn't heard in some time, and it brought us some good memories. Played DB at Rocky, played defensive back under Rocky Long at UNM. He was 2004 second team All Mountain West Conference as a defensive back, 97 All District wide receiver, 98 All District City State wide receiver and defensive back. I was team all drunk in 04. 99, same as 99. And then wrestling, 97 fourth place, 171 pounds, 98 third place, 171 pounds, 99 state champs, 198 pounds, 40-1 record. His name, let's see if I can get all these guys on here, is Mr. Josh Bazinet. Josh, on last second notice, my name is Ryan Tamori. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. I think I'll start with Ian. We sat here last year and talked to Jared Baxter, and you joined us about a new head coach. Now, today, the University of New Mexico, you two are both UNM football alumni. I just want, in general, and I'll let Ed chime in with any questions, just your overall thoughts when you heard the news of Bronco Mendenhall leaving.
Man, I guess the only way I can sum it up is, I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm also frustrated at the same time. I didn't expect after one season. I didn't expect him to stay. I know, from what I know, he is Mormon, so I know he favors Utah and wants to get back there. From what I understand, I think his family's there as well, but just overall frustration. What's up, Baz?
What's up, man?
And Josh, I'm going to ask you the same question, just your overall thoughts, and maybe I'll throw another question. What did you think of and you guys are two defensive guys, and we have Ben Weissong all the time. But I just wanted your thoughts on maybe, are you shocked by the news? And what did you take away from the 2024 season?
To be honest, I didn't want to believe it at first. I think I was kind of going back and forth and just kind of pinching myself to see if this was actually real. Because, I actually played for Coach Mendenhall when I was there. He was my defensive backs coach and defensive coordinator when I was at UNM. And, I stayed close with him throughout his years. I actually had a great conversation with him this season. I think week 1 or 2, and all the guys that kind of played together, we have our little group chat and kind of following up, and it just, football is different now. College football is a different game than when Ian and I played. It's really changed a lot, and it was just a tough pill to swallow. So it's just, what do you do? It was just very frustrating to kind of get that news officially today.
Josh, you played for him, and Ed and I have jokingly talked about this because in front of you, at least in the media, and I know that Bronco didn't like it, he just seemed, aw shucks, and he has said gee. But I've also talked, we've had Ben Weissong on the show, and he raves about Bronco. And obviously Ed and I have mentioned this, what it might be behind the scenes, but it seems like his players, and he has had success at BYU and Virginia, and this year, they found themselves almost in every game. Is he just the type of coach that you would want to run a wall for? I messed that up. Run through a wall for?
Yeah. When we had these conversations, at the beginning of the season, we just talked about all the memories that we had from my first year getting there as a walk-on to actually playing under him and kind of his guidance. The things that we did on and off the field. He was a leader, and you would do anything for him. If he said, "Hey, let's go do this triathlon," which he called the Eco Challenge, we ended up signing up for it. Did another course. We swam, biked and ran and did everything, and we blood, sweat, and tears for that man. And so there was a lot of respect for him when you played for him, and years after, still to this day.
Ed, I'm going to throw it over to you if you have any other questions.
Those things you were reading off about, Josh, that was when he was at West Mesa. Heck of a wrestling career you had there, Josh, and a football career as well, man. I remember your name very well. So that was some stuff that Ryan read when you were at West Mesa. Ian, I want to ask you, when you guys, I talked to Mike Mahorek this morning, and I don't know if you were on the group chat with Nick Spiegel and DJ Renteria and others this morning. I don't know if you were or not, but you mentioned being frustrated, Ian, and man, when you were a Lobo, you gave it your all, man. Your body's still racked up today because of some of the injuries you had when you played there. I mean, you're still yoked, bro. You still are, but man, you gave it everything you had. You told me when you played there, the group of dogs you guys had there, man, and you did. Talk a little bit about the frustration. I'm frustrated too. I didn't play the way you did, but talk a little bit about the frustration, because it looked like he gave us hope this season. He did. And the way Josh talked about him, about he'd run through a wall for him. Curtis Flake said the same thing. So did Landrick Brody. And Landrick Brody said he was trying to sign up to be on special teams, a kamikaze unit, man. That's how much he thought of Coach Mendenhall. Talk a little bit about your frustration level right now.
It's just kind of like what Baz said. The game is just different. It's with the transfer portal and the NIL and stuff like that. And I mean, New Mexico, we just consistently shoot ourselves in the foot. I mean, look at every state around us is thriving. Not just talking sports, I'm talking about cities. And for whatever reason, we just can't seem to dig ourselves out of this ditch. And so that's where my frustration lies. I don't even know who to be frustrated at. where to aim my frustration. It's just overall frustration, and I feel like I'm losing hope, which I'm not one to really lose hope very easily. But I think time and time again, and I really think this stems back from, I try not to call people out, but just knowing what Coach Long was to us, and he was the guy. I didn't play under Mendenhall, so I don't know what that experience is like, but and I think Baz can attest to this as well. But I think, for Coach Long, we would run through a wall for that guy, because he was in the weight room lifting with us. He wasn't just in there, with eyes. He wanted to challenge the guys. He was in there. You believed in every single word that he said. And with the push of Coach Long, I think that's really where we start to see the program decline. And in comes Loxley with 3 games and 3 seasons. And then you got Davies, and that totally just destroyed those 2 coaches there. Nothing bad against them. I did like Lox as a person. I thought he was a great coach, great recruiter, but it just didn't work out for him. That being said, there's no open door policy for former athletes, right? And so, when Coach G came back and DeAndre Wright's in there as an assistant coach, he's asking, hey, you guys got to start coming around a little more. It just felt awkward, almost like we weren't welcome, even though we knew we were. So it's just all these different things that are coming into play right now are just very frustrated. I sat, when you texted me this morning, just trying to think about what was I going to say. I still don't really have the words for it. All I can and all I can think of is, here we go again, waiting for the next opportunist to come in and take advantage and exploit our beautiful state, city, and program for their leverage, and on they go again. So, my hope is I don't really have a lot of hope right now, unless you brought in somebody like Zach Arnett. That's just, for me, I know Zach, he's from here. He's about as smart player as I've ever played with. So, of course, we can give the next guy a shot, or whatever, and wish him the best, whoever it may be. But I'm just kind of fed up at the moment. Still fresh, but that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's really understandable. Josh, I want to ask you this. You did play when Coach Mendenhall was there, and I think the hiring of Coach Mendenhall, for a lot of people, a lot of former Lobos said, hey, he coached under Rocky Long here. Bob Davie, he got the Lobos to a bowl game. But when Coach Mendenhall came in, there's a lot of hope there around that. Like, that was the best hire when, out of the guys that could have possibly came here. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm about him coming here because he was here when Coach Long was here. And Ian has mentioned he'd run through the wall for Coach Long. I think you thought a lot of Coach Long as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you felt when Coach Mendenhall was hired here?
When our group text kind of blew up, and of course the group text, I'm older, so we're the older generation with the Spiegels and the DJs, that actually played for Mendenhall. So when that actually came out that Mendenhall was actually going to be the next head coach for UNM, I think there was a lot of excitement around for former players that actually played for him, because he knew what he could do with the program and turn things around. I followed him through BYU and Virginia to see what he did with other programs, and I knew that he could push the programs even in the I think the 4 or 5 years that he spent at UNM and coming in. With Coach Long starting their first season, I think they only won 2 or 3 games, and every year they kind of excelled. And under Coach Long, we got to go to 3 bowl games, and so same thing with Coach Long. He was a great coach, and when in 08, I think 09, when they let him go, or however that all worked out, I know all the details, but it was a sad day, and Coach Mendenhall brought something of hope, I think, because that was, for me personally, because that was my past, and that's something that I remembered and I could relate to. And so it was exciting. I don't live out in Albuquerque anymore, so it's kind of hard. I still have family out there, and I try to get out there as much as I can and catch a game every season. But, I'm a diehard Lobo fan, and I'm going to follow the program no matter what.
Josh, on your group text, I think you were on it, Mike Mahoric and DJ or Nick Spiegel and DJ Renteria. I talked to Mike this morning. What was the conversation about? Ian has mentioned being frustrated. What was the gist of the conversation, if you could share some of that on your group text?
Yeah, so George Carter, Joey C. Lander, DJ Renteria, Nick Spiegel, Mike Mahoric, and myself, and just came out with the group text, saying, hey, is this real? Like, what's kind of going on? And, all of us trying to figure out, like, what are the reasons why Coach would leave? Everyone could speculate, everyone's going to have opinions. And we were kind of thinking about, like, what's out there. Like, the biggest conversation I had with him when he left in 2002 was, hey, I'm going back to Utah because that's where I grew up. That's where my family is, right? So he had told us straight up, if he ever had an opportunity to go to Utah, he went to BYU. He grew up 30 minutes away from BYU, so he was going to take that opportunity. We thought his family's out there. He grew up out there. Other things that are kind of thrown around. I mean, Utah State's going to be in the Pac-12 in 2026, right? There's going to be more dollars and more opportunities there. So that's what we're kind of thinking about. And for right now, for these like mid-major programs, it's tough. Like, as Bronco told me at the beginning of the season, like, a lot of these schools, you're going to create great athletes in 1 to 2 years. And the problem is they're going to leave because of the transfer portal and the NIL money. You're going to get opportunities like Devin, like, he had an amazing season. And everything that he did, watching him play, throw the ball, run the ball, he was a spectacular athlete. And no doubt in my mind that I thought, like, at the end of the season, he's going to get some offers that are going to be very lucrative, and can't turn those down.
Just one quick comment. I think when you put it like that, Josh, about Coach Mendenhall, and this is years ago, him saying, if I get a chance to go back to Utah, I'm going to go. The chance came, he's going to Utah State. And he said the other day that they asked him about it. Have you been contacted? No, it's speculative. And it turns out that he contacted and put himself out there for that job. But I think you put in a human part about it. I may be mad as a Lobo fan, but that's where he's from. That's where he lives there. I'm still mad. I'm still upset about it. But I mean, you relayed a conversation that you had with him years ago about his home. So it comes to fruition in 2024. We were hoping he'd stay a while, but yeah, if he had a chance to go back home, he's going to go home. I was just hoping it wouldn't be after 1 year. So that's, I think Ian, probably, I can't speak for you, man, but that's probably the frustrating part that you feel, I'm sure, because we had some hope here, I think.
Yeah, I would say I had some hope. And like I said, and I really don't know where to direct my anger or frustration. I wouldn't even call it anger. It's just frustration. I get it. Like I said, I just feel like we've now put ourselves, I wouldn't say we put ourselves in this position, but, I'm happy about the NIL money. That's not the issue, I don't think. It's the transfer portal that I think is going to hurt programs like us. We've never been known as a big football program. We've had some successful years. We've had some not so successful years for sure. But any opportunity these kids get, we know. I think Dampier and Wysong have both entered the portal, correct?
Yes.
And shocked to see that Wysong, but I mean, if I were in his position, what would I do? I'm from here. Would I have stayed? I don't know, man. I can't give you an honest answer. My heart wants to say that I would, but if my dream and goals are to play at the next level and I have a better opportunity to do so at a bigger school, and the school's telling me that, hey, we want to pick you up and want to put you in this position, guarantee you a spot, whatever the case may be, I probably would have taken it as well. So like I said, I'm frustrated in the immediate right now. I just don't know if we're ever going to, unless some new rules and regulations come into place with this transfer portal, like it used to be, you had to sit out a year or whatever the case may be. I don't think that UNM's, you're going to have, these kids have amazing years, and they're going to be recruited. They're going to enter the transfer portal, and they're going to go. That's just the nature of the game nowadays. And so I'm just looking. I'm a spectator now. I'm no longer an athlete. I'm a former athlete that, I played when that wasn't a luxury that we had. So, and I loved being loyal to my school. And I think that's why it hurt so much, is because I did play for 5 years. And I saw what we went through as a team and as a unit, and some people had personal issues going on. We were there to uplift each other. And so there's really none of that. It's turned into a business. It's just the nature of the game nowadays.
Ian, I got to apologize to you. I always forget how phenomenal you were of a punt returner. So I didn't do you any justice introducing you, but so that's my bad for being an idiot there. And then you put Zach Arnett out in the open, which again, I think that was the first buzz for a lot of people. And then Urban Meyer is connected to the new athletic director, which I think I won't save any. I'll save all my old head ball coach jokes for when you guys aren't on. You know, Ian, you mentioned Devin, so I'm going to throw this question over to Josh, even though you guys are defensive guys. I mean, can you talk about what it was like as a UNM alumni watching a dynamic quarterback like him? And I have to preface this because before I pursued my career and I was tainted and I became jaded and I become an angry, grumpy old man, which is two funny movies. But anyway, you know, I still think about the early, 2000s where I lived and died. And I always mention it that I lived and died with the Lobos when I was in high school more than the New York Football Giants, who have let me down many a time. But have you guys, Josh, I'll go there with this. What was it like watching Devin Dampier and that offense roll this year?
I mean, he was amazing. His football IQ and the way he ran the ball. I mean, I think within the first, 8 to 9 games, not getting sacked or anything, just his awareness of the field and where his players were and his ability to make plays. It brought hope. It was like, this guy's going to take us places. And like, I felt like we should have had like those 6 to 7 wins. There's some games that's like, we could have put things together and been really bowl eligible for seeing that. So for me, I got to watch every game, streamed every game, and just watching him play was pretty remarkable. And then the fear kind of starts setting in. Like, he's accomplishing a lot of great things. I remember against Washington State, they showed his stats of, quarterbacks. They were comparing them to passing yards and rushing yards all in the same season. It's all these guys in the NFL, and you're just like, shit, like, this guy's not going to be here. Like, someone's gonna at the end of the season is going to say, hey, here's a lot of money, and come to a bigger school. You have 2 years left, and if you want to continue your football dream. So it's a curse, but it was exciting to watch him play.
And I hate to flip the switch, and we had Ben Wysong on our show. We have Ned James on off the time. Ned James is a straight shooter. But Josh, I'll start with you here because you guys are two defensive guys. At the college level, was how, I'm not trying to say the topic of this interview is frustrating, but watching the defense, what was going through your mind?
Defense was hard to watch, especially as a defensive player, but I will say, the game is a lot different. Touchdowns are what's kind of selling everything when it comes to NFL, NCAA. Like, points on the board is what's getting fans in the seats, and it's just kind of frustrating when I think when Ian and I played, defense was a big thing. Defense won championships, and defense was very important. And seeing some of these defensive big plays and long drives or passes, it was just frustrating on my side. And I think that there was more opportunity to kind of tune that up. And, they played well in the second half in a lot of games, coming back and making some big defensive stops. I mean, it was just those first halves that really hurt us a lot.
Ian, and I'm sorry, because I feel like I'm asking you just another. I'm trying not to frustrate you with the frustrated questions, but what was going through your mind in the games you watched with the defense?
I'd say same thing. It's I didn't anticipate that. I almost anticipated more so the days of old with UNM football. That's what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting to see our offense really take. I don't think UNM's never really been an offensive school. If anything, it's been a big defensive school. So it's very surprising to see, especially with Mendenhall having that background on defense. It was, again, super frustrating. But there was still, the first couple of games was like, oh God, here we go again, but it is his first year. We'll give him a couple of years. And then they started to take off and then start rolling, but like, to Baz's point, when he's talking about seeing somebody like Dampier just take over, it's almost like you have this selfish feeling of not wanting to see a player be too successful at this school because they're gone. Yeah. Right. And so, but back to your question, it was very surprising for me to see that. I didn't expect that at all. I kind of wanted to give you the same fair share. I mean, what you thought of the offense and how they were rolling. I know it's kind of the same question, but I mean, they were fun to watch. Yeah, super exciting. And again, it's like when you start to see the stats stacking up, you already know. And I was watching the the Utah podcast where Coach Beck's going, we probably have a good indication of where Dampier is going to end up, and possibly Wysong. And he might even go to Utah State, because I know Mendenhall has such an affinity for Wysong. So, it's just that's the frustration is, where do we go? How do we get better? How do we get to where people want to stay here? Do we have the funds for it? What I will say is that letter that you read off earlier, I did read that on social media earlier, and I do like that Lovo was getting, mentioned that he was being aggressive with, trying to keep him, get him to stay. But at the same time, I'm like, why do we have to wait? It's kind of like, I shouldn't have to ask for a raise at my job, right? By that point, I'm already done with the job. You should recognize the hard work and make an offer at that point before I decide to make a decision. But I don't think it was about the money for Mendenhall anyway. Either way, he was probably going to go.
I appreciate that answer. Ed, anything else? And then I'm going to ask about maybe who these guys would like to see as the next head football coach at UNM.
Actually, it's actually my question for Josh. Josh, Ian had mentioned Zach Arnett, and Zach, of course, former Lobo from La Cueva, coached 1 year, I think, at Mississippi State. And, so they had mentioned his name last year. Briefly, his name was mentioned. I don't know if he got an interview. Coach Long had wanted to, actually come back, and they decided to go with Coach Mendenhall.
Ed, I don't mean to interrupt you. We haven't even thrown out his name. We'll get to that later, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see Coach Long coming back. I don't, but that's me. But Josh, is there a coach on your list, man, that you would like? They mentioned Urban Meyer because of his ties to Lovo. I don't see that happening. I don't. He's had some great success for sure, but I don't see that happening here in New Mexico. Is there a coach that in on your list that you'd like to see be the next head coach at UNM?
I don't have a front runner. I didn't play with Zach. I saw Zach. I saw him play, and saw his ability, and kind of just heard a lot from him from Nick Spiegel, because he was kind of in touch with him. So anyone that's kind of a former player for me that actually could have some ties here, right? In our group chat, of course, you're going to talk about guys that you played with. One guy that is in our group chat is Holman Wiggins, right? He's at Texas A&M right now. He played running back with us. He's had a great coaching career, and he's moved around a lot. He was at Alabama, and now he's at Texas A&M. And, guys that we could just, reach into, that we know that like, hey, you were part of this program, what it takes. The fans are going to love you when you win. They're going to hate you when you lose. And someone that could kind of take that on and understand this dynamic, and especially understanding this new dynamic, right? You guys say Coach Long, and I think Coach Long's philosophy is an old school mentality. And I think with this new NIL and transfer portals, it's the game has changed, and you got to have someone that's kind of up to date and really knowing what these kids are looking for from day one, and kind of being able to recruit that. So hopefully it's someone that's been around and knows the city.
Ian, I'm going to ask you the same question. Somebody in the comments said Holman Wiggins, and that's a name I hadn't heard in a long time either. But Ian, who would you like to see, or have you talked to anybody? I think it was you who had mentioned Zach earlier, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's funny. I totally forgot about Coach. I know him as Coach Wiggs. He was a GA for us at the time, so I think that would be a fantastic candidate as well. But it has to be, if we want to have some long-term success for what our program is built for, it has to be somebody just like exactly what Baz said. It has to be somebody with ties to UNM as a former player. It's the only way, and that's why I take Zach as my front runner. Not just because I played with him side by side, but because I know his football IQ. I always tell people this all the time whenever Zach is mentioned, is one of the smartest guys. Anything about Coach Long's defense, it was extremely complex. By the time Doug Mallory came with Coach Loxley, I was like, this is it. We either run cover 2 or cover 3 or man, and that was it. It was so simple. I was used to running this complex defense, and for Zach to know exactly based off of down and distance tendencies, where the ball was placed, personnel, he could tell you exactly what the play was going to be before Coach Long signaled it in. And so I think Zach has an amazing football IQ. He's young enough because, yes, the game has changed. He's young enough that he understands what these players need and want. He's got the drive. He's a former athlete. He cares about this program. That's why I would say Zach is my front runner, who I would like to see. But either way, I'd be thrilled. I'd be through the roof if somebody decided to bring Coach Wiggs.
I have to ask you about Arnett, and this might be for both of you. But with Arnett, what do you think? I feel like there would be a huge rejuvenation here after kind of what the deflation was over the last 24 hours. Would you see a big rallying point, I guess, if Zach were to be hired?
I do, for sure. Yeah. I mean, especially people that have been close to UNM football back when the stands were packed. I mean, it's been so long since we've had a full stadium. I remember when I was a kid, I was in high school, and I would hear Josh Bazinet being announced over the PA, every play. So if you know about Lobo football, you know about the history, I think that would be huge. It would be a lot of celebration, and the locals, we would love it. New Mexico, I'm a drug rep, right? So we know that, for whatever reason, the New Mexico territory, you have to have a local person, because these doctors and nurse practitioners, they want to know somebody that's familiar with the culture here.
That's a really good answer. Josh, I'm going to throw that your way. Would it be a rallying, I think, point if it were to be Zach or, somebody within the program?
Well, I do want to give Ian a shout out, thinking that my name was always on the stands. It was probably not, but I actually called his name in 2008 when I did some color commentating, so I got to see his punt returns that were pretty amazing. So short-lived career, but one and done. But Zach, I think, to me, what is critical and important, I think it goes back to when they brought on Coach Danny Gonzalez, right? So Danny Gonzalez was around when I was around. He was a GA grad assistant, and he brought that New Mexico culture. He brought the people together, and there was a lot of excitement when he came on board because he was a Lobo. He played there. He grew up there. Same thing with Zach. I feel like he grew up in New Mexico. He's a New Mexico local. He played there. So I think people would always get behind someone that is able to bring that back and kind of bring that old school 2000s, Lobo mentality back and bring the program where it needs to be.
I appreciate that answer. Ed, do you have anything else?
Josh, you did that color commentary with Scott Galletti, right, for 1 year?
For 1 year, short-lived. I sucked, so they had to kick me off.
I remember, man. I had when you mentioned that, I kind of forgot about that, but I remember now. No, you did a good job. I thought you did a good job.
And the other fun fact, Luke Wyson, I actually was coaching Yaffle, and he would beat me every year in Yaffle. So I was like, this kid's going to be a stud when he got to high school. So look at him now. So.
Josh, I will save any Scott Galletti story for later.
Yeah,
I got a few too, man. They're pretty good.
Everybody's got a Scott Galletti story.
Oh man, he's a great announcer. There's no doubt about that. But he comes with some stories, no doubt.
Sure. Ian, you don't know me off of here. I think I'm the funniest guy. I think I've got a good sense of humor in those stories. It's the funniest shit to me. Josh, I appreciate your time. Ian, thank you so much, man. And as I've mentioned to Ian, as I say on the show, even though I get a lot of crap, and rightfully so, I'm going to repeat myself. And I sound like an airline pilot. I was a big Lobo fan in high school 20 years ago. My 20th reunion is next year. I don't want to talk about it. But anyway, Ed's going to tell me to shut up. I did not play football, and I've used this joke on my radio show and this show a bazillion times. My dad was a nerd electrical engineer. My mom, I guess my grandfather, who I never met on my mom's side, big sports fan. My mom turned into it. I am a college football honk because of my mom. My mom has to watch College Game Day every Saturday morning, and she calls Kirk Herbstreit her firstborn son. I'm an only child, so you see the amount of respect I get. But I and I mention their two names all the time here. My buddy Mike Matas and my buddy Steven Pena. We lived and died from 2002, 2003, 2004. And that Utah game, where they beat them in Salt Lake City in 2003 with Urban Meyer. I mean, I talked to Dontrell about it, and I got a stat wrong, and he tells me, hey, you got the stat wrong. But that's the kind of guy Dontrell is. So to talk to two defensive guys, and I love the defensive position. If I were to play it, I would have wanted to probably play defense, all 5'8" of me and 170 soaking wet. I don't know where I was going with that because it's a tangent. bottom line is I long for those, no pun intended there. I long for those days with the hard hitting defense and what you guys brought and kind of I guess the Lobo renaissance of football there in the late 90s, early 2000s and mid 2000s. I hope that didn't make any of us dumber with that long coherent rant, but to Josh Bazinet, I really appreciate your time joining us today. And I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving and happy holidays, and on such last minute for joining us here on the show to talk about the coaching change.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Happy holidays, and appreciate the conversations.
Appreciate it. And Ian, my man, I really, really appreciate you once again on such short notice. I can't thank you enough, dude. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back. Anytime.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we got to bug you. We got to bug you a lot more. Sorry, go ahead, Ed.
No, thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man. Really good talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate
that.
Care. Ian Clark, Josh Bazinet. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. Mackenzie Bishop is already logged on. I'm sure he's ready to wrap. And Kurt Roth, 505 Sports Venture Foundation guys are joining us. I love talking to Kurt. I don't know if it's a New Yorker thing. I always like picking Mackenzie's brain. Quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Thanks to Josh Bazinet. Thanks to Ian Clark. For Ed Nunez, my name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. And I realized as I held my degree up at the beginning of the show, I hope it was upright, but that's the kind of week it's been. Ed, thank you for connecting us with Josh Bazinet and Ian Clark. Now I'm very happy. I'm not going to waste any time to bring these two gentlemen on. They are very, very prominent people within the UNM athletic department, whether they like to hear that or not. Mackenzie Bishop and Kurt Ross. I hope you guys had a happy Thanksgiving. Mackenzie, I'll start with you. How you doing?
Never a dull moment in Lobo land, you know. nothing like closing out the year on the private front in our business and trying to finish strong, and then having all this other stuff go on too. So, no rest for the weary, that's for sure.
No, there's no. You can rest when you die. Anyway.
That's right.
And one of my favorite people to talk to, Mr. Kurt Roth, president and owner or CEO of, I think it's president of 505. I've messed that up, but 505 Sports Venture Foundation.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you guys. You know this. This is very unlike me because usually I throw the first question out to Kurt, but I'm going to go to Mackenzie. I just wanted your thoughts when you heard the news of Bronco Mendenhall leaving, and were you shocked?
No, I was not shocked. When I heard, I was actually on the trip this year with the team to Logan, and Holly and Bronco surrounded by their family, and just the vibe of that place. I mean, it does feel, it just felt like a better fit for him, I guess, and when I heard that opening came up and that he had expressed interest, I told Kurt earlier, I had a pit in my stomach because it's just like, man, any other place but that, I don't think it's even in the cards. But as we're finding out more, it wasn't, I don't think it was just the pull of Logan and family. I think, the financial terms were released not long ago, and they were significant. So I know we'll talk about that, but I think it was shocking for him to leave after a year, but based on the location, forgive my dog, based on where it was,
Really fine.
I think it makes sense.
Kurt, I'll throw it your way, and the floor is yours. I just don't know what is probably going through your mind, and I have to give you some credit because I thought everybody that was like, oh, they're going to win 5, 6, 7 games. I thought they were crazy, but I'm wrong a lot. You said you thought 6, 7 games were possible, so kudos to you. But just your thoughts.
Well, it's disappointing. Like Max said, there were signs, and I had a vivid blast in Hawaii. In the second half of the game, I turned around and there was Holly Mendenhall, and she came over to talk to us because I don't know if you guys have seen it on Facebook. My chief of staff tackled the quarterback on an out-of-bounds play, and she bounced up. She was, by the way, the only New Mexican to tackle the quarterback in Hawaii on Saturday night. Holly checked on her, and we said, "How are you doing?" And she said, "I'm sad." Apparently, their 2 older guys, her 2 older sons, had been in Hawaii, and they were taking a red eye back. And she said, "I just put him in an Uber. It made me sad." And there's been a lot of talk around the family about how important the kids are. They've been in and out of Albuquerque quite a bit. We saw them in Logan. And as soon as I heard any rumor, I was like, uh-oh, that makes perfect sense. So is it disappointing? Yes. Was I shocked? Not in this business. I'm not shocked at anything. And I started to think, what could be worse? And can you imagine had they beat Montana State, had they beat Hawaii, had they beat Wyoming, and they're bowl eligible? He's still going. And would half the team follow him in? The bowl game's December 28th. The portal closes before then. Would all these guys stay? Could we have had a New Mexico team with an interim coach, no offensive coordinator, no head coach, no quarterback in the bowl game? And that would have been a real disaster. So maybe there's a silver lining. The new AD comes in, hits the ground running, and they'll replace him with a good candidate.
This is going to be my next question. Mackenzie, I'll start with you again. Have you met, I'm sure you have, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. Have you met Fernando Lovo, and what are your thoughts?
I actually haven't had the opportunity to meet him yet. At his introductory press conference, and this week I was traveling and just didn't, but it hasn't worked out yet. Do look forward to meeting him either tomorrow or this weekend at some point. But I think he nailed his introductory press conference. I think he said all the things that needed to be said. I think he was eloquent and said, he was good on his toes. He had immersed himself with the things he needed to be knowledgeable about. He was definitely prepared and did research on a short turnaround. So big credit to him. He's definitely quick on his feet and very dynamic in person. So I think that's a huge part of the job. And I will say the statement today, I thought there was a lot in that and a lot that I really liked, to be honest with you. I think, there was some little nuggets in there, and I know you guys probably already talked about it, or we can dive into it a little bit more, but everything he said was accurate. And I think that vulnerability and the honesty with the shock and the disappointment, it's not your typical press release-esque, type language. And I think that's genuine. And I think that's what people needed to hear today and wanted to hear. And I think it's going to allow people to turn the page quickly and have a lot of belief and trust in what Fern's going to do.
I really appreciate that answer because you stole all the thunder from me. Kurt, and then I'll give it to, no, it's all good. Trust me, that makes me look less of a doofus on my own show. Kurt, your thoughts on Fernando Lobo, and then I'll throw it over to Ed.
Good guy, a lot of charisma. I just think I was always impressed when Eddie Nunez took over the Storm. He came into, you remember, they basically forced him to cut soccer, the most successful on the field franchise at UNM, and all sorts of wild stuff. His predecessor, it was under indictment, et cetera, et cetera. This guy comes in, the coach disappears. He's hit the ground running, like I said. He's been in meetings late into the evening with his staff. And from my personal perspective, there's no hesitation. There's no educating needed to be done on my part about what NIL is. Two things that I think of. If you watch the recruiting weekend for Texas football, and he was the basketball guy the last year and a half at Texas, and apparently very involved and was aware of what we had done. So on that part, he understands what we need to do there. So I'm excited.
Appreciate that, Kurt. I think there was a little bit of disruption with the internet, but I think we got a majority of that. I could be on my end. I don't know. Think so. But if anybody says anybody else sounds funky, just let us know. We'll fix that. And I'm going to throw it over to you for the next question. And Kurt, I'm not calling you out on that. I'm just saying, just for our listeners.
Kurt, you mentioned Fernando Lobo. Ryan and I were there at the press conference the other day. You said he's hit the ground running. This is his first test. I would think after that, I'm sure somebody's told him when he came here that Coach Mendenhall may leave. Is there any? You said they'd replace him with a good candidate, and as Ryan said, you were the one that said Coach Mendenhall would win. The team would win 5 to 6 games, and you were right. They were predicted to win 1.5, and they should have won probably 6 or 7. And your scenario about playing a bowl game without a quarterback and a coach, that would have come true. That wouldn't have been good. But is there any name that you've heard? We've heard a few names bandied about. Is there any name you've heard, or any name that you would like to hear as being the next head coach of UNM?
I think we've been told that they had a preliminary list with 22 names on it. You can guess, if you followed the search last time, a couple of them pop out. Matt Wells, Zach Arnett, I guess, would be a candidate. But there's probably 10 candidates who look secure in their job that would be interested. This has got to be, and I think Mac alluded to it. I don't know if you guys talked about Bronco's contract. He starts over $2 million. And I've been saying this for a long time, primarily about basketball, but now is the moment for football. Whoever it is, you can't be offering $800,000 and then go to 1 and change because it's Bronco. The job needs to be $2 million, and then you're going to recruit current coaches who are successful or top-notch OCs or defensive coordinators, and that'll make a difference. So I'm sure when I hear 22 names, maybe I could guess 6. So I'm not going to speculate anymore. I just know who was in the running last time. You've got to think that those guys are still in it or will be in it again.
I got another quick question to follow up on that. How soon? Again, this is all speculation. I get that. How soon do you think a new coach will be hired? Because recruiting started. It's it tis the season. So how quick do you think the new coach will be hired?
Ooh, I hate to. I have no information about that. I may know a little more by tomorrow, but I would think you'd want to get someone by the end of next week. I mean, the transfer portal is key. You may get some guys to stay. Mac and I were talking about it today. Christian Ellis, as of going on the air, hadn't indicated he was going into the portal. Not that he's a super pivotal player. He's a great kid and a good player. But I'm saying the sooner that happens, you'll be able to possibly pick a few guys. And hey, let's face it, you can come back out of the portal. Right. So I would love to see somebody in here in a week. Now that may be rushing it, and that UNM is notorious for moving deliberately. So we'll see.
Mackenzie, I've got a question for you. You haven't met Fernando Lobo. You mentioned said all the right things at the press conference the other day. Impressive. A young guy, not a jaded guy, man, comes in here with not any baggage saying UNM this or that. He's a young guy, which I think is an advantage in this situation here. How big is the challenge of it? Because with Coach Mendenhall, and Kurt hit it, Coach Mendenhall won 5 games, gave us hope where there hadn't been hope for a long time for a bowl game. We're hanging on that Hawaii game. A bunch of us are. I'm falling asleep watching it, but I'm staying there. I'm hoping we get there. But as Kirk mentioned, that had happened, man. Imagine playing a bowl game with no coach or quarterback. It'd have been nice to get there. How big of a challenge is it, do you think, for Fernando Lobo? And it's his first time at bat, man, with a big pitch here. He's got to hire somebody that's going to stay here, for a while, recruit the right players, and get the stadium renovated. That's all got to be done. How big of a challenge is it for him?
I mean, I think it's really important to point out first of all, for an athletic director in a Division I school, hiring a football coach and hiring a basketball coach, that's literally how you're measured. I mean, all the other stuff is important, but the success of those two, especially at the University of New Mexico, that is how he's going to be measured, and that's going to be how his legacy is reviewed. And so he doesn't get much time to get acclimated with the uniqueness of this state and the nuances with this program and all the things that are going on behind the scenes to really understand what he needs to value and what he needs to emphasize in this search. So I do think it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, is he's a really, he knows what he doesn't know, which I think is really important. He's listening. He's asking the right questions. He's following around the right people who know what they're talking about. And I think that's really important as he is making this search, that he is surrounding himself with the right voices and the right perspectives, so that he doesn't have to know everything about New Mexico. He just has to be, he can really more evaluate the candidates based on their intangibles. And then he can rely on other folks to gauge whether they'd be a good fit with the community. So that's kind of what I would really challenge him to do. I think what you mentioned is longevity and having somebody who can come in here, has New Mexico ties. We don't have to sell them on Albuquerque. They're already on board with that. I think that's a big, big thing. And I think that kind of exposed itself with Bronco. I think that's going to be a really important aspect of this, and a key ingredient for the right candidate is somebody who wants to be here. And so we can have some continuity. I think we need 3 to 4 years of sustained progress and success to start filling that stadium back up and start getting the inflows of revenue that this athletic department so sorely needs.
This is for either of you. The football attendance, I don't know what you can do to, I don't know if you guys would have a place in this. I was in, and Kurt, I believe you were too. We were on the East Coast for the St. John's game. And I love college basketball. I absolutely love it. I think I just bleed college football a little bit harder. How does I don't know. How do you get butts in the seats there? I don't know if that's maybe the right question for you guys, because it boggles my mind that you had an 18th ranked team in the country. They come here and they put on a show. And you see the stands and it was just empty. I don't mean that question condescendingly. I'm just trying to figure out how do all of us get people in the stands?
It's got to be fun. And Bronco mentioned often in his opening presentations how in the last 17 years he had 16 bowl eligible teams and New Mexico had 3. So now that's 3 in 18 years. Clearly you got to win. You got to make it fun. People were excited with the close games. There was interest in the crowd. They weren't lethargic. So it's a habit. Losing is a habit. Winning's a habit. And if they win, Lobos made the bowl game this year and Broncos stayed, you'd see a bump in a minor bump in season tickets. And if they survive I think they have 2 body bag games next year. If they've survived them without getting crushed, I think the attendance would inch up. But it took us 18 years or longer, if you want to look at it that way, to get where we are. It's not going to happen overnight. But winning cures a lot of ills.
At Michigan, at UCLA next year.
Oops.
UCLA. Come on, they're with it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's the venue for me. I'm going because it's the venue. Mackenzie, if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is look at the response on social media today and yesterday. How many people are like, oh, to hell with it, throw their hands up. We should not even have football. We should get rid of the team. Let's just focus on basketball. And I know that's not everybody, but there were a lot of people saying that. And, what we lack is community-wide belief. I think probably the legacy that Bronco will bring is he brought belief back that, hey, this is possible in year 1. And we can expect and demand that we have bowl eligible teams or teams that are close to it every single year. I think belief is a really important element of this. I think the players believe. I think Utah State was a game where the players, like, you could see a palpable turn in that team and in that culture of, oh shit, like we can. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. Oh, we can.
Trust me, you're all right. I'm the culprit.
We may have a chance at this. And I think that light bulb needs to go off for fans, and that light bulb's going to go off for different fans at different times. And so that's why I mean the sustained success. This isn't going to be we win 3 games and we start selling out. It took us 18 years to get here. It's not going to turn around in 18 months. I mean, it's going to take time. And the same thing was with basketball. I mean, that didn't turn around immediately for Pitino either. It takes time to build momentum, and we'll face setbacks along the way. But that's why it's so important. This next hire is someone that has ties here, that wants to be here, and is excited about the challenge, but also has the resources in tow that they need to be successful. I mean, that's really what it is. We can't hodgepodge this thing again and ragtag it and catch lightning in a bottle like we did with Bronco. It's just not going to happen. It's unrealistic, and we have to the aggressive nature that Fernando Lobo mentioned in his press release, the things that they did from an investment standpoint, that can't go away. If anything, we need to do more. And I think that's really what this is all about.
Real quick comment, Mackenzie, I think all those things are true. Coach Mendenhall gave us hope. That's why I was so disappointed because, okay, they didn't make a bowl game this year, but there was hope. I hadn't been a long time before since I've had hope that they, 6-6 bowl eligible. That's why this hire is so important. You just mentioned, Coach Mendenhall was changing the culture. That's, changing the losing culture that New Mexico had, inch by inch, right? Brick by brick, whatever you want to call it. It was happening. And so that's why it's a gut punch, man. It is. Care what anybody says. It is. Been a Lobo fan since 70, man. Woke up today a little pissed off, not gonna lie. But I think the way you explain it, though, you and Kurt both, you talk about family in Utah, how mad can you be, man? I mean, you
Too
said
many reasons why too, as well,
Right. I mean, you said any other job, he probably would have said no. That's home. Josh Bazinet was just on and said Coach Mendenhall had that conversation when he played for him in 2002 about home. So, 20-some years later, it's still the same thing. So I don't know if I can really get real upset. It is what it is. But that's why this hire, Fernando Lobo, hey, man, your first time at bat, baby, right? Big swing. You just mentioned how important it is, McKenzie. This is an important hire, man. It really is. So as a Lobo fan, I'm looking forward to whoever it is. I can't wait. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really, I just talked about resources, and Kurt has been beating this drum, and I think people are finally starting to listen. It doesn't take, it used to be basketball you could turn around in a year because the rosters are small. With the transfer portal and with a properly funded NIL commitment on football, there is no reason we can't build on the momentum and have to start at square one. There is absolutely no reason that has to happen, provided we understand that from an administrative standpoint and we step up. I mean, we need to be bold right now, and we need to create an environment where the next person who comes in doesn't have to start from square one. They can come in and build on the momentum and take it to the next level. That's what we need to be focused on.
Joined by Mackenzie Bishop and Kurt Roth of 505 Sports Venture Foundation. I don't know if we necessarily hit on it, and I forgot, but his contract with Utah State, and I think every time I mention numbers, my dad, who was working on a PhD in electrical engineering, just rolls over in his grave, because it goes over my head. I'm my mom, and I like the history of stuff, and maybe the only thing I'm good with numbers is losing money on sports. But and if one of you can explain this better to me, and I reached out to Frank yesterday, I didn't get a response back, and I thought that all makes sense now. But the contract ended yesterday, and then his buyout was a little less. And if you want to elaborate on that, I was so confused by everything. It just made my head hurt. And I don't know if you want to answer that question, but was there any reason to that? Why he waited? I don't know. I'll throw it to either one of you.
I think you hit it on the head. This is year 2. Today or yesterday was year 2 of the contract. And the buyout went down $1 million. That's simple.
Makes sense. Mackenzie, you kind of mentioned earlier, I mean, with what he's got at Utah State, I don't know what I'm trying to ask here, but I mean, those numbers jump up, and I know you guys drive home the point and do a good job of, trying to get, the ball rolling. But when you saw those numbers, I mean, can you just elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, $2 million for him. Obviously, he was making 1.2 here. I don't know the specific terms of what was offered to him prior to leaving. The aggressive nature of their increased investment and funding. I'm sure it would have been within 200 or 300,000. And again, if it weren't Utah State, it's probably enough to keep him here. That what was really kind of staggering was the size of the pool for that for the assistant coaches. That was a pretty significant investment. And I know that was a big deal for Bronco this season. A guy like Beck, that guy's making 400,000 here, and he's probably going to make 3 or 4 times that at Utah. It's really hard to keep a guy of that caliber. And ultimately, I think we'll see where Devin ends up in the portal. I think Devin was probably more connected to Coach Beck than he was necessarily to Coach Mendenhall. So, that was a staggering number. What's not true, what's not evident, and it won't get published, is what their commitment on the NIL front is. By all accounts, their NIL organization is not near as sophisticated nor as well established as ours. And maybe that's okay with Bronco. I know, the NIL bringing that on, he's adapted and he's made it his own. But even his approach, he was wrestling with what that was going to look like in year 2 with star players making a lot more than certain guys to keep them. So it'll be very interesting to see how many guys follow him. I don't think that they're going to have the same NIL potential as we do, but our NIL potential is going to be very closely tied to the financial commitments and investment commitments from President Stokes and from the state of New Mexico and the region.
I wish Eric was on with us today because he's more the numbers guy. He gets all that. Ed, do you have any final questions about football? Because I'm going to ask about basketball.
All right.
No, I think I'm good. I've asked everything I wanted to ask. I'm good.
Kurt, I'll go with you. I was very impressed in Vegas. I was impressed in Madison Square Garden. I know the score doesn't indicate that. I thought they played pretty well. I thought Amzil hit some big shots in that game. I was impressed with that. And Mackenzie, take note of that I was impressed by you. I'm still happy with the schedule. I thought everything over Thanksgiving was good, except for off the court stuff, and I'm not asking about that. But on the court, I mean, what have you seen? I think I expected them to be sluggish Wednesday night. That's not here nor there. And I think Tim Miles is a good head coach, and that team's probably a little bit better than their record indicates. But the Giants fan says you are what your record is. Thank you, Bill Parcells. Kurt, what have you taken away from what you've seen out of the men's basketball team thus far?
Good question. I'm still mulling over what I think. Obviously, work in progress. You got a lot of new parts. And although he has been spectacular at times, you have to remember this is Donnie Dent's first time with being in the driver's seat. You see that shot he makes at the last minute to keep it from being a 3-point nightmare down the stretch. And you say, wow, that's one of the best point guards in the country. He didn't get a field goal in the first half. So there's a little inconsistency there. And, you see how I think one of the real important parts of what happened against San Jose State is no C.J. Nolan. He's clearly the glue guy on that team. Does what it takes. He's in the right spot at the right time most of the time. I don't get Nelly all the time. Seems to go on vacation. And I think the X factor is Phillip, because that kid came out of Serbia to Arizona and they were like, wow, if he develops, he could be a one and done. He sits on the bench 2 years. He loses his starting role here. He's timid. And then you see the move with a block shot, little head fake at the 3-point line, and a one-handed flush. So the kid has incredible potential. And I think that's basically what I'm getting at. I think the team can be really, really good in once again, a very, very top-heavy competitive league.
Mackenzie, I'll throw that question to you.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what Kurt said, I think we have a lot of pieces that have shown flashes of brilliance throughout the season. What we haven't had is too many games where they all put it together. I think UCLA has probably been the game where we had that most comprehensive effort from several guys, and I think that's why the score was the way it was. I mean, we put our foot on their throat and they had no chance. I think what we've been struggling with is some inconsistency with some of those pieces, but between CJ and Phillip, I just want to point out, I did kind of call that I thought he could have newcomer of the year potential. And I mean, he could get there. He has that potential. Whether he'll do it or not is going to be up to him, but he has that potential from a skill set and just a body perspective. But when you look at all of the different pieces that we have, we've had flashes of brilliance from Braden. We've had flashes of brilliance from CJ and from True at times, and obviously Donovan's been super steady. We have the pieces we need. What we need is more consistency. And I think as they continue to get more comfortable, their roles get more defined, we need to stay healthy. This team could be really good. But we've had some games where we haven't really shot well. I think coming into the season, that was the real concern is would we be able to score enough points and put the ball in the basket? And I think when we play defense, scoring's not a problem. But when you start playing really good teams, they take care of the ball and they rebound. Those easy baskets aren't there. And so, that's when you have to focus on half court execution. And I think really getting a couple extra guys being more aggressive to create their own baskets. I think Phillip emerging that way, he has that potential. I think CJ has that potential. True is making an effort, but sometimes he over penetrates and kind of overdoes it. But I think he's going to learn that as he goes. And that's great film study that they can do. I guess all that being said is we have the pieces. It's up to the coaching staff and the guys to kind of gel and put that together and improve their consistency, and we could be really good.
I said that I came on this show and said I thought they were the best team in the Mountain West after everything I learned at Mountain West Conference Media Day. So I'm throwing that out in the juju there, Mackenzie. Ed, do you have any basketball questions for Ed or Kurt?
Kurt, I do. For Kurt, Kurt, it seems, I think some of the things you said, especially about Borovichinen, and when you see it, you're
You
like,
said it right, Ed.
yeah, you know what? Don't ask me to say it again. You see that, the one hand flush the other night, and you're like, hey, you see the potential. You want to see it more. So I think his development is key. I think CJ Nolan, catch and shoot, he's just about ready to get out of that doldrums, the shooting doldrums. We've seen him nail those shots, squares up to the basket, catch and shoot guy. He's just about on the verge of really being that guy to hit 3 or 4 in a row. I'm seeing that. But I want to ask you about the development of True Washington. I think he's on the verge of really developing. He's had 20. He's had some good games. Steals the ball, scores. And McKenzie's right though. You face better teams, they're not going to give up the ball so easy and score. They're not going to be able to score in transition. But talk a little bit about True's development, because I think he's just on the verge of really, I think, taking another step.
Great point. Again, they've played 9 games. True was a part-timer last year. He's now getting the minutes, the starters' minutes. You actually saw in the first couple of games him kind of being out of breath, and that's not from being out of shape. That's from not being used to that pace, that 32-minute pace in a game. I think you're right. I love that kid. I love his tenacity. I love the dog in him. He reminds me of Hobson. I think the sky's the limit for him. And he, good and bad, he's fearless. So he will do some stuff. And, I can see Mackenzie under the basket. I'm holding my head. He's holding his head. But he is not even close to scratching his potential, I think. That kid is just a dog.
One guy I want to ask you about too is Cade Dotson, the freshman. We saw him come in and have some good games, and we talked to the strength and conditioning coach, and came in. He's solid, man. That guy's he doesn't have a freshman body at all. Donovan Dent runs a lot of picks, a lot of high ball screens. It tires him out a little bit, and we don't know that knee. One game is okay, and then sometimes he's dragging it. How much do you think Cade Dotson's development in conference play off of the bench will mean to the Lobos?
Oh, it's big time, and he didn't get much play against San Jose State. He kind of was out of position twice on defense. That's a big deal difference between high school and college. And Cade's not a point guard naturally. He's learning the position. Cade, and we've seen glimpses of it, is a great shooter and can be a real force from deep. So he's learning. I've talked to him a lot. He's a great kid. And I asked him, what was the biggest transition between high school and Division I? And he looked at me and said, not playing, sitting on the bench. So that's, here's the kid. Until he got hurt in the Texas semifinals, he was like a mirror of JT Toppin's season the year before, where Toppin took his team to the state championship. Cade got hurt. He was carrying his team. I think they were the favorite till he went down. So the kid can shoot the ball. He's tough as can be, but he's young and he's out of position. So there's going to be there's still a big learning curve there. And Coach Pitino got a little impatient with him the other night. He got beat on 2. He just overplayed his man. The guy went right past him and have a seat. It's the Bobby Knight, butt meets seat, butt tells brain. So I think that was the Pitino lesson. I don't think he got off the bench in the second half. So, he's not going to learn there. So there's some time with hopefully New Mexico State. What do we play? Western. He's going to get some more minutes. And hopefully we can see that also in the Vacom game.
I'll ask Mackenzie this. Would a massive beatdown tomorrow night maybe kind of balance the force this week?
It's a rivalry game. I'm not going to jinx it. Like we just need a win. I would love a little bit more of a comfortable win. I'd love a game in which we play well and execute better, where we play 40 minutes of defense. I mean, the coach in me is just like, I just want to play well. You know what I mean? If this team's talented enough that if we play well, we put 40 minutes together, there's not many teams on our schedule that we can't beat or shouldn't beat. So, it's some of these games that have been a little closer than they should be are self-inflicted wounds. And you can see, when they step on the gas for 5 minutes, it's like, oh man, this went from a 5-point game to a 22-point game. And they're really, they can make some runs. But we do need to get confidence with certain players. We just talked about Cade, the relationship between a head coach, especially a coach like Richard Pitino and your point guard. If you don't, you're going to play the guy you trust, and Pitino trusts Dent implicitly. And when these games are close, he wants someone in there running the offense that he trusts. So we really need a couple of games where we've got some comfort, where we can get Cade a lot of run, a lot of minutes and some reps. I think that'll go a long way. And there's a lot of players like that we need to get them a little bit more confidence leading into conference play, because these guys will wear down. We've done that the last 2 seasons, where February we kind of hit a wall. It's going to be really important that we kind of build out the strength of that bench from positions like 7 through 9 or 10.
Appreciate that. And the floor is for whatever reason, what do I mean for whatever reason? I can't talk today, and it's been a long week and a half. The floor is yours for 505 Sports Venture, just to tell people where they can find you. We always talk about it, but you are the guys. So to hear your pitch is always on our platform. You're welcome. Kurt, I'll start with you.
All right. Well, it's easy to hook up with us, 505sports.org. And, hey, if you're out and about and you're at the ball game and you see Mackenzie, all right, come up and say hi. We'd love to talk about what you think and what you want to do. And, obviously we're out there hunting for some serious capital. But, if you can do $5 a month, we're happy to have you on board. I've said this from the get-go, and we talked about revenue sharing that's about to happen finally at UNM. But I think we had 220,000 people go through the turnstile last year in the pit. A bottle of water is $5. If everyone who came to the game made that donation, is $1 million and change right there. So this is going to take a group effort, and I've said it. This is like the Green Bay Packers. This is a publicly owned team. Jeff Bezos isn't writing us a check. We don't have Phil Knight. It's up to the public, and it's up to Lobo fans to help. So 505sports.org, check it out.
Mackenzie.
Yeah, I think Kurt hit the nail on the head, and I will just reiterate. Right now it's really we have a lot of open wounds right now, and we're a lot of hurt feelings about individual people who have left us. I think it's really important to mention and to highlight in today's day and age, players and coaches come and go, and they will frequently. And I think it's really important for us to not focus so much on individual players and how they're going to contribute to our overall trend and success. It's really more about our program and about our setup and our system. And I'm telling you right now, NIL is the fastest, easiest way to create instant results and winning teams on the field and on the court. There is no better way. Facilities are important. That's good. Good coaches are important. That's good. But it's not X's and O's. It's, what do they say? Jacks and Joes. That's really what it comes down to. And NIL is one of our competitive advantages, has been because of Kurt's leadership. But it really is going to take the community, and it's going to take commitment and alignment with the administration for us to continue to have that, because it really can propel us to the top of the Mountain West consistently in both football and basketball.
I want to thank both of you guys on Last Minute for joining us today with the news and your time when you've come on the show when we've done this for 2 years. I know I'm an opinionated guy, Mackenzie. I would never hurt a fly. Plus, I'm not big enough too. And I love being a father, and it's sort of changed me a little bit internally. I might have gotten grumpier and angrier as I've gotten older. And that's more of a joke. I always love both of your insights. I appreciate both of you. I sincerely mean that. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. And if I don't, I'll probably see you around the pit, but I hope you guys have a happy holiday. and a happy new year. And if ever a GM position opens up for UNM football, I would at least hope I got an interview, because you guys would definitely rejuvenate me for and I know I'm sure there's a lot of listeners like that guy would rejuvenate me. I'm just going to pitch my name there, half jokingly, half not jokingly. I do appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for joining us last minute. I really, really do.
Thank you. Hey, everybody, tonight in the pit, the Aggies are in town. The Lady Lobos are going to give them a beating. Let's get over there. Game starts in an hour and 15. Let's go.
Here, back to back.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you again on such short notice. I'll talk to you guys at the pit. Take care.
Hi, guys.
Appreciate Kurt Roth and Mackenzie Bishop. What did you think of that conversation? I love those guys. I really do.
I think they were Mackenzie's. He's a very upfront. Whatever happens, whoever leaves, he's right. Players and coaches will come and go. So we can't just say you put all our hope in Bronco or Danny or Donovan, Devin Dampier or Donovan Dent. He's right. He's absolutely right. The NIL is going to be around for the future now. And so I think when his message to me made me feel a little less bad about Bronco. They saw it themselves when he was at Utah State. He saw it when they were there in Logan when they won. He mentioned the conversation he had with his wife and family. That means a lot. So maybe I'm not as mad as I was before, but still I'm mad. I'm still mad because I still think 1 year is, that's, you signed up for 5, you stayed 1, you want to go home, we'll go home. But I think they both brought very good points about the NIL, contributing, how to be a part of it. And they very, very optimistic. Kurt knows knows basketball. Mackenzie, they're around the program a lot. They know the inside stuff. We know the outside stuff. We watch, but they hear conversations within the program about the program. So they have a lot of great insight, and they were 2 great guests for sure. They always are.
No, I do love talking to him. Again, I don't know that aspect of the business. As I jokingly always say, I gamble on sports. I lose money on sports. I like watching. I like the history. That's who I am. Eric knows that stuff really well. My business partner, Eric Moulton. I wish he was on for that. He probably would have asked better questions than I. I don't know if they're still watching. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I really thank them today. I also want to thank Josh Bazinet and Ian Clark. I have to do that. I want to get to some of the comments very quickly. Hey, Kurt, saw my name on the wraparound. Pretty cool. My $20 that works. Thanks, Gabe J. What about revenue sharing? I think Kurt hit on that a little bit. And I want to get to this comment from Alamani Kalai. I hope I pronounced that right. You guys should have known the guy ditched UVA, but it shows what right privilege is. The guy ruined UVA programs and had a lot of kids. Not sure, I mentioned it, that he left $4 million on the table at UVA when he left. Got them to an Orange Bowl. But I get that. I find it perplexing, and I know this is after the fact. I talked to somebody in Vegas at Mountain West Conference Football Media Days, and they thought everybody was on it, and one person thought it was an odd hire. And I did think it was a hindsight. I know hindsight's 2020, and I know he was a coach here. I thought it was an odd hire. I've said my piece on him. I found him very boring. His press conferences, I didn't care to go. I didn't care anymore because it was the same thing. I understand he didn't like the media. I get that. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Your personality is different. I wasn't at the press conference when Sean asked him the question, Ed, and he was kind of like, no, I haven't had any contact with Utah State, which everybody's saying he's lying. They don't go to them. They go to their agents. Maybe his agent had a conversation, but we don't know now. What's done is done.
Real quick, let me comment on that real quick.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ed.
Press conferences. He plays things close to the chest, because other schools are watching. So he didn't want to give anybody anything other than what you asked. And I'm not saying I found him kind of strange. He didn't look at people. He'd look down and then he'd look up when he'd answer the question. One time when they just had a big win, I was going to shake his hand because I was sitting right there. And Frank Macagliano asked him a question I didn't get a chance to. But look, we came with Danny, and Coach Gonzalez gave us a lot of access. You'd see him, he might have a hug. Hey, Ed, what's up? Hey, Ryan, how you doing? It's just a lot different as far as the press conferences go. And Coach Mendenhall can deal with things the way he sees fit. He doesn't have to be Danny. But I thought, it's kind of just, like I said, just when he left, you kind of got a chill. Boom. He'd walk out, and that was that. But again, his job's to coach football, not glad handle or shake hands. That wasn't him. He didn't want to do that. That's fine. But like I said, Fernando Lobo has a big job here. Mackenzie Bishop brought it up. You're judged by who you hire as a basketball coach or a football coach. So let's see, man. He's got his first chance at a big swing. I'm anxious to see who's next. Now that, hey, Coach Mendenhall's moved on. You know what, man? Get going, get stepping, as they say, and let's get somebody in here that wants to be a Lobo.
I got to go to this, and then I was going to get your thoughts on the Ned. Jess Martinez, the Lobo program needs to adjust I hope that's the Jess Martinez that we both know.
Jess, a great guy.
Yeah, that's my guy. The Lobo program needs to adjust like every other college program. Fans are upset and blaming NIL and the transfer portal, but everyone has the same problem. It can hurt us just like it helps us. Great show, gentlemen. I've listened to both of you for a long time. Jess, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Long-time caller in the 610. Probably should have had his own show. Very knowledgeable guy.
I mean, Jess, if I do, I try to get my buddy Troy Rivas to do a national, just talk about everything in general. I mean, time's limited. Jess might be up there on the list, but Ed, who would you like to see? And to the commenters, please throw names out there, and then I'll give my piece. Who do you think, and I want to name, as the next head coach of the University of New Mexico?
You know what? I think with Ian mentioning Zach, Ian mentioned how smart Zach Arnett was. Man, I'd like to see him get a shot. You mentioned Matt Wells. Those are some names that I would like to see. Urban Meyer is a pipe dream. So you hear the name and you're like, Urban Meyer, wow. I just don't see that happening. So those are just some names that there's some other ones. Tom Herman, you mentioned. Yeah. So, I kind of want to see, we'll see it I'm sure Sean Ryder will have an article tomorrow or Sunday saying who the list is. Kurt said there's 22 names on it. They've got to pare that down to 10 and then 5 and then 3. They're not going to interview 22 people. I expect 5, interview 5, maybe 3. You're not going to, so I'm anxious to see what the next step is and what names are out there.
Yeah, I'm just going to pause there. We've had a lot of people. Yeah, Bill Belichick. I'm all for it. Greatest defensive game plan in the history of mankind, of American football. Super Bowl 25 against nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills, and I love those guys. Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, Steve Tasker, some good guys on defense. Bruce Smith, a couple names escaping me there.
Daryl Talley.
Yeah, Talley.
They had some. They really were very. Just never broke through and won a Super Bowl, but they had some good teams. They did.
Isn't it ironic, Ed, that they lost to the Giants, Redskins, and Cowboys?
Yeah, no, it is.
All NFC East teams.
Against your team, man, wide left, or was it wide right?
Wide right. Scott
wide
Norwood.
Yeah.
Scott Norwood, wide right. But man, I love. It's one of my favorite documentaries, The Four Falls of Buffalo. I'm giving ESPN credit. Not to go off on a tangent. I'm going to list the names here, and I don't know why I copied Bronco Mendenhall because I got to be more prepared for the show. Urban Meyer, Eric Benamy, Tom Herman, Biff Poggi. I think that's how you pronounce it. He just Google him, Biffpoggi. He was at Charlotte. He got fired. Sean Clark, Blake Anderson. Blake Anderson was here at UNM, although he got fired from Utah State with the Title IX stuff. I don't know if that would be the best fit. Mike Houston, Stan Dre got fired from Temple. Don Brown got fired from UMass. He won a national title, FCS at UMass in the late 90s. Dan Mullins is a name. Matt Wells, as I mentioned earlier, and Jeff Simietta mentioned it. He loves New Mexico. The Mountain West title game is coming up in about 10 minutes. UNLV, Boise State in Boise. I'm looking forward to that. Boise -4, Boise first half -3. Also have the over in Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky, Conference USA. Jacksonville State is up 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. They were a lot of fun. Yeah, thank you, Ice Ice Baby. Yeah, stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention.
I mean,
That's like it's like the only line.
What's his name? Robbie Van Winkle. Is that
Robert Van Winkle?
Oh man!
And if you've never seen it in living color, Google Jim Carrey Vanilla Ice impression. It's the best.
I think I did, but I have to see it again. Man, that brings back a lot of memories, man. The guy made a living on that song for a long, long time.
Yes, he did.
Suge Knight made him give up the rights to it, man. That's another story.
That's another story for another time.
Yes.
I do. We've had when we started this podcast, I thought we were going to have 10 people listening. The last 2 episodes, well over 300 people. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Excuse me. And I want to say I thought we would have 10 people listening. And I know that I am not everybody's cup of tea. If you met me in person, when I talk sports, yeah, I'm probably an asshole. And I'm probably a know-it-all, and I love history. The guys on the show, and Ed, I've tried to be more self-conscious of it, not to interrupt you guys, which I hope I don't do. Rick would probably tell me to shut up if I did. I do truly appreciate people listening. I do. And especially during the holiday seasons, I'm not going to get sentimental. I really, really appreciate people listening. I do. To the loyal listeners. And Jimmy H, I know we've had your spat. Bottom line, man, I appreciate you listening. And to the couple of Twitter posts that I know I'm probably taking it to heart. Yeah, we've tried to imitate BJ Raines. I am just not a homer. I am biased, and I don't think any of you guys are homers, and I think you call it like it is. And if I've told you this, we get along outside of here, but we don't purposely need disagreement on the show, but we need disagreement. And I'm not trying to be Skip Bayless. In fact, and I am going to cuss, I fucking hate Skip Bayless. I hate Stephen A. Smith. It's an act. It's a shtick. The afternoon guys on 610, and I will name him Fred Slow, told me I needed a shtick. And I said my shtick was to be myself. If you listen to those guys and you like them, yeah, that show has a 0 rating, at least did 2 years ago. I would take, and I know for specific niche in a top 50 market like Albuquerque, and to a lot of people who haven't found us, I would say 352 people on your drive time home is pretty damn good. I'm not gloating it. I appreciate everybody listening. I really do. We've been almost doing this 2 years, and we've gone from a rinky-dink podcast, and I know you don't like that, Ed, to live. I appreciate it. I really do. If you don't like the show, I get it. If you like the show, more power to you. I don't want to lose listeners, and I'm not trying to say anything that I really don't believe. I don't want to be Barstool, Jess. Even though, I'm 50-50 on Barstool. I like Big Cat. He does crack me up. I like those guys. Portnoy is another topic for another time. And I love Brandon Walker. If you know Brandon Walker is, I do love the guys on their college football show. Really do. I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm trying to stick to point. Bottom line, we've been doing this almost 2 years. I thank every listener. I really, really, really do. Ed, this is I don't know if you got to jump off, but hey, Ed, with the success of Don Flanagan and with the Lady Lobo, do you think a local prep coach may be Fred Romero? I guess, is that for college football?
Fred Romero coached at La Cueva. He coached there. Gosh, it's been a couple of years. I think he won a championship there. Yeah, so I don't see that. I don't see that. There were some comments online you didn't see, or maybe you didn't have a chance to read them all, that they should go back to rehiring Danny Gonzalez, and that there's no way that's happening. There's zero chance of that. So Fred, local prep coach, I don't see that happening either. I'm thinking of the local prep coaches. Coach Garza just won the state championship with Cleveland. Coach Brandon back at La Cueva. They're great coaches. I don't think they'd be. I don't know if they'd be interested, in coaching at the college level. I'm sure they would be, but I don't see that. I don't see that happening. No offense to those guys. They're great coaches. I just don't see that happening.
I went off on a tangent, but again, thank you to all the listeners, and thank you to guys that support us. I do appreciate it. This was not easy. I'm a business owner, and it sucks.
Yeah, real quick comment on that. John Romero, he's a big, big Aggie guy, but he trolls us all the time. He says, we should get Jerry Kill as coach. He makes me laugh. There's no way that's happening. Or bring Diego Pavia, as quarterback. We know that's not happening either. But he's a longtime listener. Same thing with Eric Markham. You mentioned Ice Ice Baby, Jimmy H. Thanks to all of them, man. And Ruben Valles, Miguel Sanchez. He's not here today. You always
Miguel Sanchez.
Yeah. So we're getting new listeners, and I think that's great. So I want to say the same thing that you do, Ryan. I know it's your show, but I want to thank them all too, man, because we appreciate them. Without them, there is no show. So thank you to all the loyal listeners and the new ones that we've acquired.
No, appreciate it. I'm going to say my piece, and Ed, I got to thank you. This is not blowing smoke up each other's ass. Ed was able to get Josh Bazinet and Ian Clark. Ian's the man. I really appreciate him. He and I have a little bit in common, so I really appreciate him and his insight. And I think he's a straight shooter. So happy holidays to those guys. And I want to thank Eric for reaching out to Mackenzie Bishop. I always see those guys at Lobo events, and I say hi, and I appreciate what they do. It's hard work. I'm not going to deny that and what they do, and they've got a tall job. And I'm half serious about the UNM football GM, because then it would be I would be Lobo fan number one. I really would. It would probably be, I don't know anything about doing it, but I'm sure I could figure it out. I don't think I'm that much of a total idiot. With that said, I think Zach Arnett for the new head football coach of UNM would be striking gold. Jeff and JJ said it this morning, and I'm not trying to steal their thunder. Fernando has to give Urban Meyer a call. He just can't. Holloman Wiggins, I forgot. I hadn't heard that name in forever. I'm going to read Ronnie. I like Holloman Wiggins because he's been around some great coaches and coached some pretty damn good wide receivers. I think he has connections from all recruiting top players in the South and Texas. I think Dan Mullins is out there. I'm interested. I wish Jacob Neff was on too. He says they have to go get a D2 coach. I don't think so. I think you have to go find somebody with a pedigree like Bronco who has won, and to rebuild this thing. Then I think I play devil's advocate with myself, Kenny Dillingham, and what he's done at ASU. They were picked 16th in the Big 12 this year. They are playing for the Big 12 title tomorrow against Iowa State. I like Iowa State. I like what Matt Campbell's done there. I think Kenny Dillingham, I think they can win. I've been riding their coattail all year, and they've been fun to watch. And if you don't know who Cam Scatabo is, find out tomorrow. I think he was a D2 transfer or lower, FCS transfer. I think from Sacramento State, actually. Sacramento State, FCS. And his numbers are astronomical. I mean, he may be a long shot for Heisman. I think Zach Arnett would make the most sense. Playing devil's advocate with myself, that sounded funny, is it a repeat of Danny Gonzalez? I hope not. I don't know if Danny would want to come back. Is Rocky out there? I don't think people would say that. I just don't think, I'm not trying to sound outlandish. I don't think that you can discredit any person. And I think you have to weigh all your options. I think it's going to be tough, but I think it can be done. I really do. Ed, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't. I think some of the names you mentioned, Coach Long was a candidate last year, and I remember he wrote in the paper just a couple of months ago that, hey, I thought I could win there. They didn't think so. So I think that ship has sailed. Coach Long seems to be happy with his retired life in Durango, Colorado. He served as a defensive analyst for the Fort Lewis football team this year. So I think that ship sailed. So some of the names you brought up are very interesting. You're right. Fernando Lobo probably has to give Urban Meyer a call just to gauge his interest. So we'll see. I'm anxious to see. We should know more in the next couple of days, who's on the list, who they're looking at, and hopefully by next week they've got a coach, because they've got to hit the ground and get going with this recruiting. So I'm looking forward to it.
While we were on with Kurt and Mackenzie, Ryan Davis had announced he is in the transfer portal. I want to thank Ian Clark, Josh Bazinet, former UNM football players. Really appreciate that, Ed. Thank you for that. Mackenzie Bishop and Kurt Roth from 505 Sports Venture Foundation, Affordable Brazo Homes, Mackenzie Bishop, they have sponsored us. Appreciate them. Dulce River Bakery and Coffee, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room Hydro Bar, and affordable service. If you are looking for a preview of New Mexico State tomorrow night, go anywhere you can find a podcast. Rick and Eric broke it down. Rick Thompson, Eric Moulton. I hope everybody enjoys the New Mexico State game. Enjoy your weekend. Don't do anything dumb. Don't do anything I would do. We will talk to you Monday. For Ed Nunez, Eric Moulton, Rick Thompson,
Richard,
Nick Nunez, and I think I said Eric Moulton. I'm Ryan Tamori. This was the Press Live. Everybody have a good weekend.